Hello everyone, I'm from Comms Group, the name is Boris Fischer. I'm here with Dietrich Benjes, is that how you pronounce it?
It's good enough for me.
And good enough for him. Dietrich is from Varonis, and we're going to ask him a whole bunch of questions and hopefully we'll make it very interesting for you guys to watch. So Dietrich, tell me a little bit about Varonis and where does Varonis sit in the market from a security perspective?
So a bit about Varonis, we've been around for 13 years now. I've been with the company for 12. We have well over 6,000, almost 7, I think approaching 7,000 customers.
Oh, wow.
Key to what we do is we help organizations really with one of the biggest challenges they have when it comes to security, which is we help them identify, detect, discover their most important data assets, and we help them protect that information from insider threats and cyber attacks. The reality is we do a heck of a lot more. Wow, I didn't drop a little tiny infinity ball. We do a heck of a lot more than that, but that's the high-level marketing. Very data-centric. Okay. So what do you see the challenges that organizations today have when it comes to that sort of data security? So one of the challenges I think they've started to address, which is actually valuing data and treating it as an asset. Yeah. And I say they're starting to address this. That's the first thing, realizing, one of the first things, you have to realize you have a problem, right? So they realize that they have a problem with data. They realize that there's value associated to it. And like any asset of value, they need certain controls around it. They need certain information, they need certain intelligence, not only to maximize the value of it, but also to make sure the risk is minimized when associated to it. Right? Think about honestly, think about any asset you care about it. Whether it's your watch, your passport, your car, correct. You know where it is, you know what it is, you know correct. Its value, you know who has access to it, you know anybody who touches it, right? Now think about your data. What do you know? Where is it? What is it? What's important, valuable, sensitive, classified? Who has access to it? Who's accessing it? What's in use? Who owns it? What's normal? What's abnormal? None of these questions are answered to even an intelligible degree as it currently stands. So that comes in with I answered that question a bit kind of flowing. One of the first challenges, addressing the fact, knowing you have the problem, but then addressing it through getting some information and intelligence on your data. Okay. So the traditional focus with organizations that look at data or look at the loss or leakage of data is, let's get a DLP solution. For you guys, it's data loss prevention, data loss protection. Yeah. What is the approach that Varonis takes compared to maybe other organizations? So if you look at DLP as a product sector, and what is the intent? One of the things you always look at is, because I hear about, you go to organizations, we have a DLP project, we have a SIEM project, what is the business value you're trying to obtain with this project? And with the product, what are you after? Don't put product first. Put your objective first. Yes. So DLP, let's now wind it back a bit. So with DLP, what's the objective? We want to make sure that the information we care about doesn't go out of the organization, right? What's the challenge? What's the dependency for that? You have to know what you have that you care about. And the limitation for DLP, and by the way, I'm not sliding DLP, but I'm telling you how it works. It's not all encompassing, it's encompassing of blocking USB sticks, printer ports, a whole host of endpoint controls to make sure that your egress points don't minimize your ability to bleed out information deemed sensitive. What do you deem sensitive? Dependency, right? How can you bleed out information? Dependency. So we're not a DLP solution, we're not endpoint. We're looking at really the more core collaborative information assets. We know what's out there. We'll go find it. Yes. We're not going to go find it. We'll see what's GDPR or privacy information or the CFO's data or whatever, right? Information of value. We'll find that information of value. We'll put context around it. Context like who has access to it? Who is accessing it? Is it in use? Yeah. And then we'll address those things. If it's not in use, why don't we maybe move it somewhere? Yes. It shouldn't be. If 1,000 people have access to it, but 3 people are, why don't we limit to the 3 people that are? Correct. Addressing the problem at its source as opposed to it's logical, right? It makes perfect sense. Yeah, because I always look at
after fact. We tend to be reactive
Yeah.
in terms of, shoot, data's just walked out of the door. Well, not literally, but it's gone out of the door. Now let's rewind back. And I just find it's
Reactive, being
very,
proactive.
yeah, exactly. And so the message what you're saying is that if you can gain some visibility of exactly who should be owned or what data and the ownership of that structure, you therefore can put much more effective controls.
Well, if again, line up the variables you need. What don't you know? What do you need to know?
Correct.
What's the high value of information and intelligence you need in order to control that asset, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Not the fact that it's just been emailed. You need to go, okay, I know its location, I know its locations across the environment, I know who has access to it. I can't think of anything more fundamental than access control, right?
Yeah.
Because I've got a key that gets me into my car,
Correct.
into my house, into this office. So
Yeah.
can't figure out anything more fundamental than that. So let's figure out that.
Yeah.
Let's figure out who is I need to know the telemetry,
Yeah.
the audit trail of who's using this.
Yeah.
Like your bank account. I know that, occasionally I look at my bank account and look at deposits and withdrawals and what the heck is my wife just bought? You know what I mean? You can't do that anymore,
Yes.
as it
Yes.
currently stands. I don't know who's opened, modified, moved, touched
Yes.
it
Correct.
if I'm not getting the telemetry. And it's high value, right? And what's more important, in the scale, if you have a scale of value and you go, I have like a security guard at an airport or a bank scanning your luggage as you go in or out, or the fact that you know where, you have safety deposit box, you have accounts, you have
Yeah.
ledgers against that.
Yeah.
Common sense, the value scale on that is well, make other people. I'll stop talking for a minute. That's what I'll do. I'll let you ask some questions.
Okay. So my next question was related to what you just mentioned, but I want to put a spin towards people, because when we talk about insider threats, we always really it's about insiders, the people who could have legitimate access, and through their legitimate means either put the organization at risk through malicious activities,
Yeah.
or maybe accidental.
Yeah.
So how does Varonis then come into the picture and say, look, we can also focus around the people side
Yeah.
and understand what they do.
Yeah.
They can put the data side in risk.
Absolutely. So they're intrinsically linked. The fact that one of the things we talk about often is human generated data.
Yeah.
And the fact that individuals' identity, roles, accounts are the ones that have access, that create, that modify, that use data. So when I talk about those variables I mentioned earlier, the most two important is the information around the data, and then this other part,
Yeah.
the information around the individuals.
Yes.
Boaz performs this role for the organization. He's a C-level individual. He has access to this, that, and the other thing. He's interacts with the environment this way. He logs on from certain locations at certain times from certain devices, interacts with certain individuals, forms a baseline of activity, a profile that's pretty easy to ascertain if you're looking.
Correct.
And then once we sit there and go, well, this is normal Boaz, and now we see variables which indicate that it's not normal Boaz. Boaz usually is in Canberra, he's in Sydney, now he's for some reason in Okinawa. And he's accessing data via the VPN where usually he doesn't, and he's accessing it by certain times. And what's this IP address or this device that we haven't seen before?
Yes.
And he's accessing data he doesn't normally. So that, that as it's framed, UEBA, user entity behavior analytics, the key thing is that users and their behavior, what are you trying to protect? Data. So you need that telemetry from the data.
Because what I'm seeing, a lot of the discussions today when it comes around insider threat have been revolved around some log management.
Right.
Collection of events, systems, and running some correlations. And the new buzzword is the user entity behavior anomalies. So, I just think again that they're very much focused on let's get some system events and let's run some correlations and understanding of what we infer by system behavior. But I always think it's they've missed a step. They're looking at the symptoms, not at the cause.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What I'm interested, from your perspective, in regards to Varonis, because you do have some of that behavior anomaly
Yeah, we've
detection
been in
and
that
so
business
forth.
for 13 years. So yeah, that's people often think of us as where we started in terms of access control and where we still remain. Least privileged access, hey, come talk to us, we'll help you. But we've always been focusing on our ability to identify behavioral trends.
Yeah, yeah.
And where behavioral trends align to certain threats. You know, and we know in terms of that relationship between users and data. So we know when there's things that look like a privilege escalation, a data breach, a brute force attack. I could go on. We've got over 120 threat models which describe these certain, specific threats. But we know that because after 13 years and several thousand customers and large and small environments combined and seeing all this sort of stuff, we have the AI, the machine learning, and we have that when you talk about it. There's a difference between a log repository, and like scenes of going, well, compliance says we have to collect the information, but does compliance say you have to use it? No, not really, but it makes sense to use this information, right? So what are you looking for? Again, what's the business value? Don't put, I suggest, not to put the product first, but put the business objective first. And if it's reducing risk associated to some of your highest value assets, which are a combination of individuals, also risks.
Yes.
The problem between keyboard and chair and data, then you need to leverage those bits of telemetry that are relevant, right? We need to know if it's information on our users, whether we derive this from a SIEM, log repository of some sort, or derive it from whatever system. We need to know the who, hows, whens, what's, where's, right?
Yes.
It depends on what you're trying to stop and what on the telemetry you need.
Do you see it as a sort of a common background, a common denominator in terms of the way organizations see the risk and the way they want to try and solve the problem? The question what I'm trying to do is, are some of the organizations really have no idea where to start? Or they just say, okay, insider threats, let's get a log management system.
Yeah, I think they'll have something in their periphery, something in their understanding, something in their experience which may have a play on insider threats. And though, by the way, though we focus on this, we agree and leverage a SIEM. We leverage other, we're definitely a user behavior analytics platform, or a data security platform with pillars across a capability, but we also appreciate that it makes sense to leverage and add value to other investments. But hence, one of your first questions is organizations have a DLP project.
Yes, they do.
And why? Because they're worried about insider threats and they're putting a security guard at an egress point scanning luggage.
Yes, exactly.
To look for bottles that are over 100 mil.
Yes.
And if you also have a aerosol container, anyways, I joke.
Yeah.
But that sort of stuff.
Yes.
There is so that's I mean, people have done that before.
Yeah.
And they go, well, other people have done that, and whether there's attributable value to it or not, it's something that, you see luggage scanners in every airport around the world because they do add some value.
Yeah.
You see DLP in a lot of organizations because, of course, it adds value.
Yeah.
But, there is arguably more logically effective paths to take.
Yeah. Last few questions. Where do you see the security domain moving forwards as a whole around data risk and system risk and the user side of things?
Yeah, but I think one of the things we've seen in recent years, but really culminating in later on this month with GDPR, is, and this kind of comes back to one of my first statements, is there's been a rise in privacy regulation. There's been a rise in privacy regulation. Otherwise, it's still on because it looks like the record button's still on. Sorry, breaking the third wall. Cooey. Anyways, this rise in privacy regulations has been focusing on data. Now, that's where I see things going. And that is a monumental shift. Statistically, not my statistic, but something I gleaned from the BBC's website. I can find it for later and you can reference in this. 87% of security spend is spent on the perimeter. firewalls. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So there is that understanding that if you're trying to protect data, if you're trying to stop an insider threat, if the common sense dictates that perimeters are becoming more porous or dissolved, then the controls need to be brought closer to bear.
Oh, for sure.
So we've seen that shift and kind of that evolution, that awareness, that epiphany that, you know what, those perimeter investments we've made, they serve a purpose, but there's a declining return of value. So where can we get a higher return of value?
Correct. Last question, if someone was interested in Varonis, and I really hope they do, how do they find you? How do they reach to you?
Sure. So the best place is our website, varonis.com, varonis.com. We also have a great blog.varonis.com, which, by the way, you can I'll talk to you about that after.
Yes.
Those are easy ways. My email address, if you want to get a hold of me, is Dietrich, which is Dietrich, Rich@varonis.com.
Excellent.
Thank you for your time.
Many thanks for that. Alrighty.
Cool.